Hello. Greetings and salutations. Let me move the fireplace without burning my hands a little bit there. There we go. um, if I look like I'm a little bit droopy, I'm not. I've just been working too hard lately, burning the candle at both ends, specifically sewing up wallets and stuff. I don't know why I actually am looking at my iPad here. This specific video has no notes associated with it, so I don't know why I did that. On the divine simplicity of natura naturans, or Mother Nature specifically. If I could say if asked the question, the most important thing to understand about Mother Nature is how incredibly simple it is. Every human being suffers from countless innumerable fallacies that we have, and human beings love to pigeonhole things and categorize things, and I keep using the same analogy in many videos, like ice, water, and steam, which are of course all one and the same thing. These are different modalities of one and the same thing. Fundamentally, and I made this prediction, I was the first person to say it, and it was confirmed about half a year ago, that super high energy light is what fundamental matter is. There's only one fundamental particle, and it's just ultra high energy light. The galactic jets spewing out trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen along their geomagnetic precessional axes are nothing other than magnitudes of 10 power, maybe even 1,000 power above that of gamma radiation, and they're emitting a fundamental particle. And of course, all matter is compounded hydrogen, whether it be gold or uranium or oxygen or nitrogen or carbon or anything. It's just compounded hydrogen. And we know the processes by which atoms are compounded. Radioactive decay and countless other processes. But human beings suffer from a fundamental fallacy, of countless ones actually. And I was taught, but I never believed it. I don't know if you did or not. Most people just, oh, this is what I was taught to believe. This is my teacher. They're 30 years older than me, for example, if you're in high school or college or elementary school. And none of these things really apply to our lives. In other words, they don't confirm or deny our lives when we work and pay the bills and, care about our loved ones and stuff. So we never have the ability to put these things to the test. It's like, well, does this make any sense? And does anybody really care? Most people don't. Knowing is a really great thing, but people say, well, does it make me any richer? Or does it improve my life? My position at work, my job, my wife, my kids, my salary, and of course the answer is no. But having an understanding of things requires that we have to flush all that nonsense out of our head, that we're taught so many things which are atomistic, and the byproduct or fruit of atomism is materialism. And so many people, and I'm not on anything, by the way, other than taking an occasional ibuprofen for like sore hands. I'm not, but the whole world, not the whole world, but a lot of it anyway, is taking some sort of medication because they're depressed materialists. And this atomistic view, has as one of its children and as one of its fruits, materialism. So everybody's depressed and miserable, and they keep working harder and harder and harder to make more money so they can buy more junk. And they find out the junk doesn't make their life any more fulfilled. The only thing I've actually found that fulfill life is wisdom and understanding. It's not to say I don't really wish I had a good vacation where I could like swim in a hot tub or something for a week and just not think about anything. I would absolutely love that. I've never done that before in my life, but we all suffer from the fruits of atomism and materialism. We're all taught this nonsense about Mother Nature and how she works. And there's nobody on this earth that can state demonstrably, without it being absurdly preposterous and illogical, that Mother Nature is one thing and one thing only. Energy and energy modality, and everything is one. I mean, that sounds so new agey, I mean, I'm completely, not completely against, but I'm fundamentally against the New Age movement, and the people that putting special stones on different places on their body. I have nothing to do with any of that. But just like a broken clock is right twice a day, it is fundamentally undeniable that nobody could say anything accurately about ultimate reality. By ultimate reality, I mean natura naturans, or Mother Nature, in that it is, in its absolute simplicity, one thing and one thing only. Unless we accept this and are able to see the fundamental substratum of this reality that we inhabit for 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 years, we're just lost in a sea of materialism and misery. And we all suffer that to greater or lesser degrees. I try to suffer with it as little as possible. However, I'm a creature just like you that has to pay, gas, water, electric, phone, cable, house insurance, car insurance, property taxes, and so, I am also too, a prisoner under that barbaric system that we're all stuck in. But great peace and understanding comes from understanding nature and seeing the way things work. And everything in Mother Nature works off of one simple premise: pressure mediation. You can explain everything very, very simply. That it's either capacitance, resistance, permeability, and permittivity, but also too saying that is very simply pressure mediation. There is not gravity over here and electricity over here and magnetism here and dielectricity over there. Neither is there ice, water, and steam. These are all just different temperature and pressure modalities of one fundamental essa, or essence. In that case, it's water. In the case of fields, it's energy, or the dissipation of energy, with which we, of course, end up with centrifugal divergence or centripetal convergent, i.e. field modalities, whether that be the coaxial circuit that is light, or the toroidal three-dimensional S-curve that we call magnetism. But every scientist and everybody on this earth suffers the same confusion, is that we have this strange world that's full of fields and gravity and electricity and atoms and light, and these are not different things. They're all one and the exact same thing. Wisdom is its own reward. You don't ever need true wisdom anyway. You don't ever need confirmation from anybody. You don't need approval from anybody. It's an insight where you're standing on the top of the mountain, proverbially speaking, and you're really able to see the forest for the trees and see the trees also. The simplicity of everything requires the perspective of standing on the mountaintop of wisdom. And I don't care if anybody knows or believes where I stand at all. I literally am not trying to impress anybody on anything on that front, but none of us can talk about, and all these scientists do, all these little books and articles and YouTube videos that we watch and look at, they all suffer the same nonsense. They really do. That there's this here, and then there's this here, and there's something else over here, and these two things interact, and none of that's the case. Magnetism is not different than dielectricity. Gravity is not different than dielectricity, except in its attributional nature. It's exactly the same thing. It's not something different at all. So, let me stretch over this way. Oh, sorry. This bent over sewing machine kind of put a crick in my neck, sewing up leather wallets. But I hope you're getting at what I'm speaking about. Well, and I'd like to make a separate video after this one about the ether, because everybody keeps asking questions about the ether, and also too about fields. But everything is fields, and fields are not particles, as I've said countless times. But we are all suffering under this delusion that anything that has a speed is moving, like light and sound. But sound is not an emission. Nobody emits sound, but we all have heard our entire lives the notion of the speed of sound. Well, the speed of sound, for example, is just the rate of induction of the perturbation of the air, being oxygen and nitrogen. The speed of sound changes depending upon the density of the air, also to the temperature, which is also to a density attribute, but nothing emits sound, a perturbation is generated. Nikola Tesla accurately said that light is nothing other than a sound wave in the ether. If you fundamentally start at the most basic of things, which is light, the most basic of things actually is the dielectricity, the ether under stress or strain, which is dielectricity, not light, which is most fundamentally simplex. But light, a lot of people think, is the most fundamentally simplex principle in the universe, and it is. We all suffer from the delusion about what light is, that it's an emission or a wave or a particle or wave-particle duality, that it has a speed, and none of these things are accurate. Mother Nature does not have a calculator. There is not these different things of electricity, which is a hybrid, by the way. There's no autonomous field modality as electricity, nor is there autonomous field modality as gravity. Electricity, gravity, dielectricity, magnetism, these are not different things. Things are only separate things in the minds of ignorant human beings. In the case of Mother Nature, who's not a real person, but a personifying Natura naturans, or Mother Nature, there are not these things. Mother Nature, if it was a person, would say, well, this is the ether under stress or strain. This is the ether and the loss of the stress or strain energy, which manifests as a toroidal three-dimensional force vector, which generates space. Thence we have space. And when we have space, we have time. And in the case of light, as is demonstrably, and this is a huge thing to understand, infrared, radio, visible light, gamma radiation, and matter are all the exact same thing. I've humorously called matter hard light, but it is a ZTP, or a zero-time particle, but it's just a non-transverse EMF perturbation modality. It's just extreme, because it eventually reaches, because gamma radiation is an extremely, which is just high energy light. The reason why gamma radiation is so dangerous and it breaks up our DNA and is lethal is that its spatial footprint, because its capacitance is so high, is incredibly small. And fundamental particle, the proton, is infinitely, and it is stable. Yeah, it's stable. Also, there are actually proton emitters, but I don't want to get into that. It sounds like something from Star Trek, which should just be nothing different than a gamma radiation source. But the fundamental particle is just many countless magnitudes above that of gamma radiation. So all light and matter, and I spent half of my life trying to logically reconcile light and matter, and I feel like a total fool for having done that. Because if I applied my own principle of retroductive logic, which is the lost discovery of the Pythagoreans, to the conundrum of explaining, to nullify the light matter dichotomy, which is not a duality or dichotomy at all. They're both one and the same thing. If I had applied what I fundamentally have known for more than half my life, is let's just apply retroduction to light and matter. There's no need for reconciliation of light and matter because they're already reconciled. They're nothing other than one and the same thing. Fundamental matter, and all matter is compounded hydrogen, which is undeniable. Fundamental matter is just super high energy light. Boom, there it is. Mother Nature does not have this thing and that thing and this thing. If somebody could understand something and start off with a correct premise of understanding of nature in their life, cut nautilus shell, which is of course beautiful, a foundation, kind of like the concrete in your basement, it would be to always start out with, if one's trying to understand nature, that everything really is one. And what we're looking at are things that are reified and conceptualized by ignorant human beings as something different than, well, over here we have magnetism, over here we have gravity. Gravity doesn't exist. Electricity is a compound of dielectricity and magnetism. Magnetism is just the dielectric field in toroidal manifestation as a three-dimensional S-curve due to the loss of energy or inertia that defines the dielectric, which is the ether under stress or strain. The ether is the fundamental substrate of everything, and a field is just an ether perturbation modality. Light is just a compound ether perturbation, and it's not really compound. However, explaining light other than a coaxial circuit requires an hour-long video in itself. Literally it does, even though light's so simple. But light is not moving. It's not an emission, it's not a wave, it's not a particle. Waves don't even exist because waves are not things, rather waves are what things do. But standing on, the mountain of wisdom, not saying that I am there, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I'm a fat, bald, tattooed nobody, and I don't care about that. Wisdom really is its own reward, I must repeat. You cannot ever logically, intelligently, or even with the slightest grain of wisdom put forward a bold picture of Mother Nature that involves many things. We have electricity and gravity and magnetism and this and that and the golden ratio here, and we have light over here, and we have quantum over here. This is nonsense. If super advanced aliens that are, 100,000 more years, 100,000 years more advanced than us, they would say that's ridiculous. These are not just different things. You're conceptualizing and pigeonholing these many things which are one as different things. They're not. But we do have different names for magnetism and dielectricity and gravity because they have different attributional interactions. But that's no different than saying ice, water, and steam are different. Ice is hard and cold, and steam is hot and vaporous. So we'd have these different names for things that have different attributional natures. But that is only due to their capacitance or lack thereof. That is only due to the geometry of which they are. In the case of magnetism, which is the toroidal force vector, centrifugal force vector of the loss or energy of the dielectric, which is the ether under stress or strain, which of course then we have space. Space, of course, is exactly like a shadow. Space is not a thing at all, rather an absence of something, the after effect of a divergent magnetic field. But if I could just say one thing, and you have to realize that you just can't tell yourself that, because telling yourself that doesn't make you understand anything, is that nature is all one thing, and that human beings have rationalized these different things, which are not different things at all. When you can see everything in its true essence, it is irreducible. You understand them all. You understand why they are and how they are, and that they're all one and the same thing with different attributional states. And that is, of course, due to the energy or the lack of energy of the system at the time. So, Mother Nature is divinely beautiful and so simple, and yet so hard to explain. But anyway, I digress a little bit. So maybe you could apply retroductive logic to your own look at cosmic mechanics, and don't listen to these people with PhDs writing books of nonsense stating that, like the electron's a charge-carrying particle. I mean, it's just one example among millions, which is conceptually and intellectually absurd, as I mentioned the other day. If electron's a charge-carrying particle, that means the electron carries no charge because you said it's a charge-carrying particle, kind of like a clown car. Then an electron's like a clown car and it's carrying around charge. Electron's not the charge itself. If you have wisdom, you can see through the silliness that these people believe in, which is not rational, it's not science, it's not physics, and it's certainly not wisdom. It's pseudoscience, it's a belief system. It really is a religion. So, anyway, thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.